So I happen to have this new Phantom, and I've had it for actually a week right now, and I've come to the conclusion that ultimately the sounds in here, uh, and they weren't really straight. They weren't forthright, and rightfully so, and saying, "Look, we got this new premium workstation. It's been blah 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 so many years, and we got the 5080 engine here." Of course, they're not going to say that. I think that would kill the workstation on day one. What they did do is they threw in the XV5080 as they kind of have over the last 20 years. Um, but they didn't say anything about it. I think really the way I look at it is the 5080 engine was a classic, like the Triton and so forth. Was a classic sound set, and they're just including it in there. No more different than when you see MG bass or Moog lead, like in the Chronos. Uh, they're just putting a classic sound set. They just happen to be the authors of that, so they threw the whole engine in. But thank God that they didn't actually promote it like that. Um, and what they were kind of leaning towards was more of a synth, um, lean towards more of the new synth stuff on the Zen Core chips. Um, and then they talked about bringing the V piano back, which really never made it into another keyboard, at least fully as they claim. And so, what makes this keyboard obviously a different category is, first of all, the build quality. I mean, it's like you pick it up and it feels like you're holding a Python. It's real tight and solid. Um, people that touch the knobs and just has a certain sturdiness to it, which is very refreshing to this day. Of course, you're paying for it. Um, the the one thing that's really nice about this is that this is not very cluttered. Those of you that own Chronoses and even montages and motifs, they've got so many toggles that they make these and these, and in some cases these buttons, like on the Chronos, do a ton of different things. And it seems like they've kind of slimmed it down because these just beg to control volume and to control pan and select like this. So I'm glad they left that alone. And they left the tweaking with all this over here, this whole panel, like all this whole box here, which is real nice. Um, the the sequencer, the software that runs the sequencer, and some of the buttons are to some degree. I mean, it works, but it's half baked. The software, um, no compound time signatures other than 4/4 and 3/4. Nothing else in here. You can't do it. Um, that needs to be fixed. Um, the Ableton Live or the clip based launcher, for those of you that like to do songs in sections, it's kind of tough to do. Um, like this row A, you may have something recorded, and then you go to row B because you might want to do a verse or whatever. And the first time you record on one of these blocks, the remaining tracks are going to 16 tracks will sound automatically by default, and that's no good. Um, it's no good if you're looking to do sections and like verses, choruses, and intros. So it makes it more inviting, really, the way it is now, just to have this big matrix of possibilities on certain songs that may not have changes, whatever, key changes and all that. So, um, trying to think with some other stuff. The DAW control. I don't put a lot of faith into these because the manufacturer has to support the DAW control drivers as new operating systems have as they come out. So, they're like sprinters. They're off the gates fast, but then they die. They shortly die as soon as new operating systems come out. They're no longer supported. I've got 3 Phantoms here. None of them work with Mac OS 10 anymore. But we all know that. So, but the way they do dog control in here, um, which happens to be Apple only, is real nice because you're, look, I've got a session here that's got 57 tracks, and I can get all these banks of 8. It's real nice. I mean, it works extremely well, and you can play. You can play. You can do the positioning, just like they say. I can turn toggles off, like that, and just play. So that's real nice. Actually, it's very, very nice. You can hit shift, and then you can, some of these buttons will do other things. Although it never eliminates your need to actually use a keyboard and mouse. It's pretty obvious. But it's nice for some quick things if you're willing to, if it works within your workflow. The pattern mode, I've already talked about that. Does need some refining though. It does, especially the editing. The past Rolands, when you record something, this box would come up, and they had a feature on there that after you got done recording, if you wanted to keep it or not. Now you don't have that feature anymore. At least that I don't know. They don't have that feature anymore. So now you got to go to pattern utility every time you make a mistake to undo. And then my natural instinct was to go record once I did that command because I'm used to the other stuff, other recorders. And then you find out that you can't record like this. So you got to go back into pattern, which is an extra button push. So this button's going to get used a lot. Or you can hit this button. But all these fixes, for the most part, because they got it right, the keyboard is wonderful. That's subjective, but if you're fans of the older Roland keyboards, this should not disappoint. These are solid. These glass buttons are actually real nice, and they serve as multifunction as well, for your TR recording, your track, and your scene chaining. Works real well. Trying to think. These were welcome addition. This reminds me again of the V-Synth, and these do double duty. They spin, the turn, and then they depress, which is nice. So I'm just waiting on Roland to come out with some software tweaks. There's no excuse. They should have the full V-Synth in here because I missed even though I use software drums, I miss the Supernatural drums, and I miss Supernatural guitars, and they had a couple Supernatural basses I miss. It would be nice to get the back catalog of like the bass legends and so forth. That's actually in the Phantom G as stock, but it'd be nice to have that stuff. So we'll see what happens, what surprises they have around between now and NAMM, and hopefully they address some of these. I'm not sure if they're bugs, but workflow issues. But all in all, they got a great start. Didn't mention anything about this panel a whole lot, but it's cool. I'm glad they included the panel right here. Let's see, this panel next to the joystick. Oops, can't get to it right now, but they got the dedicated transpose. Oh, I'm glad that they didn't put they got rid of the D-beam. It just, personally for me, it was problematic to have that D-beam on there. So it was a good move to take that off. I'm sure they were listening to their customers about that, the removal of it. So one other thing for prospective buyers. If you're looking, because it's a lot of money, if you're looking for something that's fully baked, I would wait again for not a gold master, but a better update to tweak this. Also, 3 USBs here for peripherals, which is great. see these grids, I would love Roland to come out with a pad that had 64 of these, or however many, 16 by 8, I mean, pad, like a high APC controller or a machine jam style that would have these buttons too on here, because you don't want to wear these out, these 3 buttons, and some more knobs like that so you could control the sequencer with it, because nothing beats the tactile versus having to do this. And sometimes, I mean, live, this would be very difficult to zone in on these. They could have put 64 here or whatever, but they didn't. So I'd like to see a hardware add-on for this, definitely. And I'm sure that I've left out a few other facts about this keyboard, but so I'll post more down the road as deeper I get into this. But hopefully this helped you out, and we'll see you again.